You mentioned that bankrupting a business. Can you share some lessons that you've learned from those times that now is useful to your career now?
Man, when I was 22, I personally guaranteed like credit card machines for a business got bought out. And when they were like restructuring debt, they were like, no, throw it by the wayside. And I'm like, dude, I make like 50 grand a year. And you guys just left me hanging with $15,000 worth of personally guaranteed credit cards,
Wow.
like processing equipment that's outdated and like in a box in the corner. And I was like it's a quarter of my year's salary, to do that. So there was like large impacts and learning lessons along the way of all of those things. And every day I reflect and make decisions on those, not to personally guarantee something, but like ensure that what you're doing is the right thing, has integrity, slow down a little bit, see something, say something
Yeah.
mentality where it's like, don't be the one that could have made a difference when there's a lot at stake for people and their families and lives. And I did that and made that mistake at one point where I was like, hey man, I'm not the owner of this company. Like, this is your vision, your direction. And that's a bad mentality to have because
What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Story Seller Jet, and today we have Benmont Locker in the talk show. Today, let's go, baby!
dude, was excited, and that energy, I'm now at a 12 out of 10 excited.
There you go.
Pleasure to be here with you, man. Something that I've loved the studio, been alongside you for a lot of projects, my own, our business, in communities, masterminds. But today, pumped to be here.
Man, I've been looking forward to this day probably since we started the podcast.
Man, we're hyping this up hard.
Oh yeah,
we better deliver.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you are one of the person that I think you are extremely smart. Not I think I know that you are extremely smart, and I know today is gonna be a great podcast with the things that you're gonna be sharing. And as a friend, and also as like somebody, that I get to work with. I look up to you as it relates to like, business and like, all this kind of stuff. So I'm super excited today to, be on that podcast with you. Talk show, newly talk show. Today, man, I think it's going to be fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't thank you more for the kind words. And I'm here because of you, your creative abilities, your vision, and just bringing this to life, right? The talk show aspect, as you were describing it earlier, super cool. Because, right, like podcast, niche, very consistent, doesn't get wide. And what you're doing, positioning this as a talk show, just brings unlimited topics to people. And I think where we bounce around to today will be very fun, and just looking to kind of share some of my past experiences, and wherever your viewer base, you guys out there, will find some value in, what I've done, what I'm working on, and see where it goes.
Awesome. Yeah. And guess what? You are the first one to be on the talk show. Everybody else were in the podcast, but you
talk
are the
show
first one.
Premiere.
Premiere for sure.
All right. Well,
Let's
dig
do
in.
it. So I'm gonna, just so I don't butcher anything, I'm gonna do a quick read of your introduction. So for anybody that like, watching this, can know a little bit about you. So Benmont is a sales, as I mentioned earlier, a sales and marketing expert, with a deep background in real estate. And obviously you are with, Integrity First Home Buyers, where you oversee more than 400 transactions every year in real estate, and, plays a critical role, helping real estate investors scale, and also with your involvement with CG, Collective Genius. Shout out to CG.
It's our crew.
Yep. And also you run Ramp Skills Academy. Basically, that's a training platform focused on improving sales skills and conversion, particularly for direct-to-seller real estate investors.
Yep.
So today, as it relates to the talk show, we're going to talk about sales strategies, marketing tactics, hiring best practices, and probably like some lessons that we've learned from business success and failure. So super excited to be delving deep into that with you today. So
yeah, awesome.
Did I miss anything about?
No, man, a better job than I would have done for myself. So shout out to the great introduction. And really, I think whether that's, credibility from my team and everybody contributing into some of those credentials, which is awesome, is just really sharing a little bit of that journey. Like you said, taking the failures, the lessons learned, and some of the things that we've been able to consolidate through a lengthy time in real estate, and just shorten the runway for people, right? It's almost just like, hey, the what not to do's is I'm an expert at what not to do's. And if we
Awesome. I
can
love
share a little bit of those, right, that could help somebody save some time, move them further ahead to where they are. And you said sales, and like my palms got sweaty because like very nerdy, right? Don't expect very salesy out of me. However, I think our team has done an amazing job, and my focus in recent history has been operationalizing sales, which generally is a very contradictory topic. And marketing hates sales, and marketing generates crappy leads, and salespeople never get along. But what we found is some commonalities in building a refined and operationalized sales process brings so much synergy to an organization, no matter what the commodity is. It could be real estate, widgets, whatever you're selling. And then the cultural impacts from that, the return on ad spend and marketing dollars tremendously increases, revenue goes up. So a lot of people say like scale and growth, and they think it's like systems only on one aspect of things. We found that doing that on the sales side has some of the largest impacts into the organizations we run.
I'm having goosebumps over here, man. This is gonna be fire. That's so fire. Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously I've, gotten a backseat of the whole thing because you guys came in here and re-recorded some of your courses, materials.
Yep.
Man, what an awesome curriculum and videos that you guys shot. If you guys are interested in learning more of that, go to school, and it's Rimp's Skills Academy on school.
We built it on the school platform. Ramprei.com is where everybody can find information. But yeah, that's if you've got a sales position in your organization. Again, like when you think sales training, onboarding, hiring, holding accountability, weekly meetings, all of the stuff that generally us entrepreneurs or business owners don't have time for, we've consolidated that inside of a community where we passionately like love that aspect of the business. And we just want to provide a cool environment. Like this is very chill. Like this is the vibe of our Zoom room of bringing, we got on average 100 people every week together in sales positions and helping them understand the operationalized aspect and the fundamentals of those sales, making it fun. Like when salespeople perform better, it's fun, right?
Yeah,
and that's our goal. So yeah, if anybody's in sales, lead managers, acquisitions, dispositions, yeah, send your team that way. Ramprei.com, shameless plug.
There you go. We'll talk more about that later. But let's start by talking a little bit about the journey.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier about like the not tos, which is fantastic. And obviously this talk show is about, business success, failures, and all the beautiful tips and tricks to help people grow. So let's talk a little bit about your journey, from early on as you started your career to where you are at today.
Yeah, we'll do long story short, abridged version, but really I have always spent my time in like the startup entrepreneurial space. And I'm 38 now. Hopefully this ages well. Somebody's either gonna be like, wow, that guy looks old, or like, hey, he's doing okay. And it took a while for me to understand my value position, like to a team, to an organization, to myself. And through that journey, like you said, right, you learn where you really excel, where you can help make a positive impact. And getting started, it was father-son in a startup style business. We launched a model that was like redneck TJ Maxx. So think like everything you would go for, name brands discounted, but for the hunting and fishing industry. And we built out a retail chain of almost 20 stores in 9 states, and we did it pretty quick in like a year and a half.
Wow. Incredible.
I launched every single store, traveled to every state, opened every one of them. Back then, right, lived on Red Bulls. They were thriving at the time. And in my 20s, it was like fun, right? Travel around and work really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And then, right, my dad was great at sales. That was his like natural ability, and everything else got thrown my way. In my early 20s, like my skill set wasn't 100% refined, but a lot of the marketing and operational responsibilities fell there. And I like started piecing together like, okay, cool. I get this. And I think the bond looking back between my dad and I gave me the respect for sales that most people don't have when it's just like department to department.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like if you join an organization and it's like you're in marketing, you're here, and then like sales guys exist. And right, day one, you learn we don't like sales guys. And he's all I had at the time, and he's my dad. So it was like, man, I can't hate this guy for too long, like only till after lunch, and then we'll reset and get back to it. So kind of fast forwarding through my career, we were lucky to sell that to a PE group.
Wow, cool.
I joined board with them and we got heavily involved in the tech space. And that guy was like my dad, ratcheted up a couple notches in his like entrepreneurial skill set of being just a chaos maker, right? But it led him to like tremendous success. So I figured out the synergies there, like I wouldn't say day one, I would say hour one, where I had a room of developers, and we were going to take that model and scale it into the e-com space. And my lead developer had Asperger's and had a couple other people that like couldn't communicate super well with somebody who's yelling and under pressure and tension. And I was like, guys, I'll just be the buffer for you. And then I'll take that information and I will go back over here and me and my team will work on it. Right.
Yeah.
Fast forward 10 years later, right? Like CEO integrator style relationship.
I didn't know that story. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
that's like now, so now I'm like, right, I'm phase 2 of that. And over the next 10 years, I continue to kind of scale that model where would take a startup idea, love the building, growing phase, and then translating that visionary aspect of all of the positives of an entrepreneur, but like trying to systematize the negative impacts, and create stability that sometimes that brings for the rest of the culture. And just over a couple different things. I was in the spine implants and medical devices, alcohol, supplements, beverages, and then navigated into real estate for the past 5 or 6 years. And that's just been fun. It's been like passionate. The team that I'm a part of now has obviously kept me there just due to the relationships, and people like yourself and the communities are amazing. But yeah, taking all of those experiences, I would say the biggest lessons learned there are the mix of like adversity and facing challenge, because in the startup world, like everyone's all odds are against you and everything's hard, right? Like you're understaffed, under-equipped, and everything's an uphill battle. So hard became like the norm. And like that isn't like a woe is me thing, but it was just like, okay, like failure is not an option. You figure it out and nobody else is going to do it. And then it's like the quickest way to do that is to systematize some of the great ideas that people emotionally have or can create one-offs of. Then how do we do more of that and create a process that does that? So that's kind of what led us to the repeatable aspect of things.
That's awesome. It's so awesome, the journey, the things that you've picked up along the way, how that has shaped like, the person that you are today. It's a accumulation of all the other lessons learned. And like, again, as I mentioned earlier, like I think like the things that you are doing and with Integrity First Home Buyers is fantastic and really great things. And now that I'm sitting with you and talking about all of that, I can see all the pieces from day one working in the professional world to where you are at today and how that has fit and has um, come together to be where you're at today. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think all the ups and downs come with it, right? You're small, medium-sized business owner now. As you grow, and soon you'll be enterprise worldwide, talk show. But right with that came literally bankrupting a company at one point. Man, when I was 22, I personally guaranteed like credit card machines for a business, got bought out, and when they were like restructuring debt, they were like, "No, throw it by the wayside." And I'm like, dude, I make like 50 grand a year. And you guys just left me hanging with $15,000 worth of personally guaranteed credit cards,
Wow.
like processing equipment that's outdated and like in a box in the corner. And I was like it's a quarter of my year's salary, to do that. So there was like large impacts and learning lessons along the way of all of those things. And every day I reflect and make decisions on those, not to personally guarantee something, but like ensure that what you're doing is the right thing, has integrity. You slow down a little bit, right? You're not emotionally making decisions. Speaking up when you know something's wrong is like key in our organization. It's almost like the see something, say something
Yeah.
mentality, where it's like, don't be the one that could have made a difference when there's a lot at stake for people and their families and lives. And I did that and made that mistake at one point where I was like, hey man, I'm not the owner of this company. Like this is your vision, your direction. And that's a bad mentality to have, because not only right did eventually that disintegrate and fall apart, everybody lost some money, but time, energy, relationships. There's a better way to learn lessons than to like physically go through some of that. And would much have rather like hero stories of
Yeah.
how we saved something than like that. So no shame in any of those lessons, but you don't have to learn the hard way. Right? Surround yourself with people that have been through it. And if I would have leaned on some of those people better for some advice during the time period or before or immediately after, I probably could have had a little bit more of a softer landing there.
Absolutely. You mentioned that bankrupting a business. Can you share some lessons that you've learned from those times that now is useful to your career now?
Yeah, I had this conversation the other day, which is interesting. I'm from Pennsylvania originally, the Mid-Atlantic. Like we talk really fast, and most people like struggle to be like, "Man, that guy's had a lot of coffee," or like whatever. But it's not the case. It's just kind of we move quick. Now I'm in Florida, right down the street from you, so I'm adjusting my speed of life a little bit, prepping for that senior retirement zone in another 20 years. But the conversation we had the other day was specifically around like navigating the relationship and speaking up when things aren't good if you choose to be inside of an organization that is led by someone else. And I think a lot of time people view that as like working for the system or right making money for somebody else. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think what that indicates is a lack of alignment with like the purpose of a company. And like go down a quick rabbit hole, but right, we talk about the how important the vision is of a CEO, an owner, a whomever. And why is that? And the level of clarity that is important to people inside of an organization is often understated dramatically. Now, listen up, all entrepreneurs out there, right? Like, this is something that's going to pain you, but is super helpful. When we talk about like clarity, it's like you would say, we're going to climb Mount Everest. And the team is like at day one and doesn't process emotions or thoughts or energy the same way that you do. And it's like, okay, well, Jet, like, tell us what's the plan? What's the path? And you're like, dude, Everest. Like, if you go up, you'll eventually get there. And not everyone operates that way. And a business coach of ours the other day said, like, oftentimes that's pixelated information. So, right, like, you're in digital graphics, but everybody else think black and white TV when it's like, you can see little pixels on there. It's like, that's what that sounds like. So Everest is fragmented. What people are seeking is so much leadership and clarity. And that's why this operational position exists, is to take that and turn it into like, today we're going to do X, Y, Z. Tomorrow, this is the plan, right? And our Everest now becomes like, we are in Nepal and we got a 32-mile trek to base camp. We're going to spend 14 days there. We are going to prep our equipment. We're going to go 8,000 feet to base camp 2. We're going to be, and it's like, right, that becomes the system and the process that people are seeking to attach themselves to celebrate the summit of Everest. But we can't just say go to Everest. And I think that's like the piece of what's most missing inside of organizations that help them thrive to kind of get to like your original question of like, what's it take and like what drives that? And that's where that comes from.
That's awesome. Man, I think we're going to have like part 5 on that podcast because I think there is going to be so much fire that's driving that podcast. We're going to have to come back and doing some more. So thank you for sharing that. And I think like me personally, like I've taken a lot from what you just said, because I am one of those people that just say, hey, I want to go there, but necessarily doesn't like paint that. I have the plan in my head. I know kind of what to do, but don't communicate that well to my team.
It's frustrating, man.
Yeah.
It's hard, to be honest. And if it's not you that's great at it, just find somebody that is. Everything that you're not amazing at, which is a lot, but there are some things that are not your unique ability, just find somebody that can help bring that to life for you, because then there's nothing in the way of stopping where your vision wants to go. Everybody's saying, cool, we'll climb Everest with you. They just don't know how to get there yet. And you see it much clearly more so than them, but you also don't want to deal in the tactics of the day to day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For the viewers, this might become a counseling session over here.
Thoughts with Benmont and Jet?
Thoughts, yeah, with Benmont and Jet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I had it's very specific question that I was going to ask about that, but it was going to come back to me. But let's switch hats on a little bit.
Yeah.
Talk about like a little bit about sales and conversion. And I know, shout out to CG. You and Joe run CG Elevate.
Correct.
And all the amazing things that you guys, discuss over 2 days with, some of the newcomers in the real estate process. You want to talk about CG Elevate for a little bit? Maybe giving a quick plug right there.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, CG, Collective Genius, obviously is the elite mastermind community, I would say, for real estate investors in the US. I don't know anything else that touches in comparison to the quality of community that is. And over their tenure, geez, do you know how long? I mean, 10 plus, 15 plus years.
I've been helping CG for about 7-8 years now.
So they focused on the more seasoned investor for a period of time, right? To build the infrastructure and the value of that community. And over the past couple years, they then built I would say, a younger, more mid-level investor who was doing a fair amount of deals, a lot of different style practices than somebody who's been at the game for 15 years, the OGs per se. And then in the past 24 months, the CG wanted to build out somewhere for people who are aspiring to get to that level could be, without saying no, go figure this out on your own and then come back and you're good enough for here, right? So they did a little look in the mirror and said, like, that's flawed for us to not be a community regardless of where you are in your journey.
Yeah.
It's much more about the mindset, willingness, and desire to get there. So we helped kind of create the structure, with their, amazing leadership team. And we landed at a place where it's much more of a coaching environment for people doing, just say, 10 deals a year, right? So people who are kind of like hacking their way through, but they're solopreneurs, right? They're pulling their hair out. Their hair that's so fire,
That's
is
so
how they
fire.
describe their head at the end of every day. And they want and have a desire to start to stabilize their business and become a business, not become a guy doing real estate, but
Yeah.
to become a guy or girl or woman of running a real estate business. And that could be a business and a team of one, but you treat it much differently with the intent to do something bigger when it's not just you trying to stay above water every day. So that community is much more coaching driven, and it's almost like us being that accountability to their own vision.
Yeah.
So you'll start to piece together all of these things that I personally involve myself in are all about that passionate pursuit of helping, like, logically break down the steps for somebody to get to their whatever success is for them.
Yeah. And I, get to see behind the scene some of the presentation that you guys are doing over there, mind blowing. And I think even people that are even ahead of time, ahead of, like, the startup phase,
Yeah.
could hugely benefit from the things that you guys are sharing as part of this presentation. And I could not think of any better people to run those 2 days at CG, other than you and Joe.
You
You
got
guys are
my
fantastic.
yin and yang there. We got, like, Mr. Sales, Rico Suave himself, Joe over there, who's like literally one of the best sales trainers ever just because of how much he cares about that. And then again, we've both found that synergistic blend of respect for each other's importance in whatever the business is. And I think that's why it's so fun. And it comes with a little tough love because, right, we're not giving out participation trophies. We are here to help you execute on your vision. You said,
Absolutely.
I'm joining because I want to pay to be part of a community that's going to help me get to the next level. We do not take that lightly, and we hold people accountable to their commitments. So sometimes it comes with tough love. We have a lot of fun along the way. But yeah, we get down to work in that community, and it's awesome. The hashtag or theme of that group was to double their deal flow. So in 12 months, we wanted to take the average investor who is actively in real estate, double their deal flow, and then launch them right into the next group above that, where they got a little bit less of that rigid structure and coaching, more into the community aspect of things. And then, like, sphere of influence of, like, what aren't they doing yet? What's new? But we've really built that rock solid foundation inside the Elevate community.
That's awesome. So if you are a real estate investor looking to double your deal flow, go to thecollectivegenius.com and request your invitation to be part of that
Link like here or here somewhere.
Somewhere over here.
Yeah.
But thecollectivegenius.com and click on CG Elevate to double your deal flow. So let's talk about some of the things that you talk and teach as part of that group as it relates to sales and conversion, and also that you teach a lot on Ramp Skills Academy. So the first question, what is the most effective technique that real estate investors can use to boost sales conversion?
It is a sales process, a repeatable sales process. And now, everybody's just out there, like, everybody like lean forward. He's going to say something I've never heard of before. Doesn't exist. Okay. A repeatable sales process will compartmentalize marketing functions, sales functions, operational functions, and you will gain instant clarity into what's working, what's not working. And even if everything is working, how to incrementally start to improve those, right? So that is going to be the best place to start, is when you don't question how well somebody's performing, how you do sales versus how I do sales, and then the variability of outcome exponentially, unfolds. We know that when everybody is practicing the same way, doing everything the same way, that we isolate the variability in that part of the process. And we just know that that's where we live. And then we can train on it, and we can adjust our marketing, and we can adjust our support and resources. So, what oftentimes is the most fluid piece in specifically a real estate organization, and sales in general, is like we just let people do their sales thing, right? That makes it very, very tough to have consistency, repeatability with hiring, scaling, onboarding. Like when you bring somebody else in, do you have to do it all over again? And is it all new? And it's like, no, the answer is like, this is our company sales process. This is the data that backs it. And this is the expectations that come with it.
That is fantastic. I think that's one of the big thing that I'm still struggling with is actually having a specific sales process to kind of go through. And I don't even have a sales department, so a
But there's
lot of
sales functions, right?
yeah.
So then whoever's going to handle that, and that's where people get hung up a little bit, is like, well, we don't do this. But it's like, those are all excuses of why not. And it's like, just anybody, when it comes to relatability to a sale, we operate under these parameters, and that becomes your process. Doesn't need to be fancy. Doesn't mean process maps and pages of documentation. It's like a congruent, agreed upon, practice and trained process.
I love it. Yeah, I was having that conversation with Jason Medley on the way to San Diego the other day. He says, Jet, let me ask you a question. How many sales do you have outside of referrals? And I was like, not a lot. Most of the people that come to me is because of the relationship that I've built with them. And just like, I don't go and sell,
Mhm.
but like using Ramp Sales, like Skills Academy or something like process like that, where we go out there and just like hunt for like something. I think that would be something awesome to get to in the future.
Yeah, it's even when it comes to referrals and free marketing and conversions, it's your ability when you do that, it's not even about new. It's about like refinement and streamlining what even already exists. So what that will give you insight into, that ultimately is the result of doing sales, is who is our like core customer, what is the avatar, and like how do we create an enjoyable experience for both of us? Because as real estate investors, the last thing we want to do is make 20 grand on a awesome wholesale deal, right? Yeah, and get a 1-star Google review. That's not a sign of success, right? That's a quick cash grab. So even when it comes to sales, the objective isn't to make money. Obviously, we need to make money along the way, but it's to communicate with the least amount of people who are the most profitable and who appreciate our services, and we can treat each other the best along the way. Like, how does Jet's solutions best impact this person that needs them, so they're grateful, thankful, and willing to pay a premium for that service? And at the end of that, they high five you and give you a hug and say, exceeded all expectations. I want to leave you a rave review. Like, so get the 9 people out of the way that aren't that, and then go find 2 to 3 more of those people that are that. So that's sales.
That's so fire, baby.
There you go. Less clients, more profitability, right?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. A lot of people, they just like, focus on the volume game. How many people can I get, to talk to or to
Yes.
sell to? But that's kind of flip everything on its head, just like, focusing on the ideal people that would add more value to you.
Yeah,
That's
and I think a lot of times you'll find that it's like the Pareto principle, right?
80/20.
That yeah, the majority of your revenue already comes from that, but you're fighting so hard and doing so much extra. It's like reverse Pareto. Then you're doing 80% of your effort to attract 20% of your revenue. So like, what do you think that does to your time, energy, resources, and everything else? Like, right, it starts to deplete that. So one is like really just knowing who you cater to the best and how to serve them people, and then just where are they and how do you talk to them? Like, right, marketing then goes from 27 channels this wide with like broad spectrum messaging to like, dude, we are great at telling stories for small business owners who want premium quality, like delivery, exceptional service, and they want to do it locally in the area's best studio, right? Like, it narrows it down, but those people are out there, enough of them, and those people are willing to pay, right? Like, you're not like trying to skim through all of the other stuff where you're like, oh, I just needed 100 leads this month.
Yeah.
It's like, no, man, you needed like, how many deals did you want to close? How much money was needed to be made to be successful? And how many people could you help? That's like a handful, right? Like, we all do all of this extra work to get to all these gross vanity metrics, when it's like, dude, I want to kind of introverted. Like, I want to talk to less people. Like, give me the 10 people that I need to do business with that appreciate that and want me to be here. Right.
I love it.
Yeah. How
That's
many people
awesome.
would be on the talk show? Probably a ton. What 3 this week can bring value to you and your viewership that you enjoy sitting here with? And then it's like mutual, like, right, like us. And it's like, it only takes a couple.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So a follow-up question, what are some of the common mistakes that you see salespeople make in real estate, and how they can avoid them?
Oh, this is an easy one for me. Logical qualifications, meaning you're on the phone and we train to have a script. So I don't know you, you don't know me. Ring, ring. Hey, thanks for calling XYZ Home Buyers. Awesome. You want a cash offer? I'm going to ask you 27 questions in the next 4 minutes about your house. And number 4 is like, how much do you want for it? Right? Like, when would you want to sell? When do you need to be out of there? And somebody says, I'm not sure. Like, I looked on Zillow and the Zestimate said 189, and your formula said can't buy a house unless it's 70% of value, unqualified. There goes a $450 lead. So it's like, when you take the logical computation-based process and throw every need of the seller to the wayside, you get yourself into essentially living in like a spectrum of price, which is not where investors win. Value, right, has a dollar sign associated with it, but is around the needs of that person and the solutions that you can provide. If everyone flip-flop, I may be giving out secrets. Nobody in my market watch this and do this, but right, switching to an emotional-based sales process that literally, you can ask those questions, you can receive the information, but you do not make decisions based upon logical answers that somebody gives you.
Awesome. So you talk about emotional sales process, and that sounds very sexy. And my whole thing is about, I think emotions get reaction. So can you walk us through the emotional sales process from lead generation to closing a deal?
Yeah. So the interesting part here is we run the same emotional sales process on what we have like inside sales. So my real estate investor friends out there, like your lead management department, and then the acquisitions function as well. So we emulate the same. And sometimes people will say like, well, isn't that redundant? Like you're talking about the same things. Answer is like, no, just go deeper on the things that you know about them. But that comes back to the sales process. It's predictable. Like you don't show up and now ask them 27 new questions. They might be variations of it, but like it doesn't throw people for a loop. They don't have to put their defensive guard up, right? It's an environment they're now comfortable in. So when we do that, basically, we won't go through all of the steps today, but we earn the right to have candid conversations with people. And that's done through emotional connection. I'm not talking rapport like, oh, Jet, you like Florida? I like Florida.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. Like, oh, is that a picture of a city over here? Like I've been there before. It's really more like, okay, like let's take away sales. And it's like, Jet, tell me about what's going on, man. Like, obviously I see the house here. We'll get there. But like, what is going on in Jet's world? And I don't even know if I can help you yet. And not just saying the things, but like empathetically meaning it. Like, can I help you today?
Yeah.
Can you help me? Like, are we a win-win? So it's building that foundation, which then earns you the ability to make a crappy offer, right? Like after you and I have enough respect for each other, where I'm like, dude, like this is the part that I hate. And you know, we had to get to price at some point in time. I promised you I'd give you an offer while I was here at the house today. So I'm going to uphold my end of the bargain. What I don't want you to do is get mad at me. And it makes me literally like sick to have to do this because I've seen houses sell for XYZ in comparison to yours, right? Like we were able to purchase a house in a similar condition, help a seller in a situation that, you know, we could pay this for. And at that point, people will encourage you to do it. So, right. It's almost like, no, man, you're not going to offend me. Like we're this far into the process. Just throw it out there. And if it's not good, I'll tell you it's not good. But your close just becomes like, what happens next? Right. So like, what about that works? What doesn't work about that? Your objections become conversations where you're not fighting over defense mechanisms of somebody in seller psychology, right? That is just like, they're guarded, right? Like when you're walking out of Costco after you went shopping and somebody's standing next to a solar or AC thing is like, hey, you got a second? And you're like, what's your immediate response?
Definitely no, I don't.
Like, I don't even know what you have, and I know I don't need it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if you knew that person and they took 5 minutes to talk to you about it, and you might hear what they have to say. Like you might still be hesitant, but it's like, dude, okay, like you've earned the right to do that. And no, the age of the windows and the age of the roof and the last time you replaced the carpet has nothing to do with that relationship.
Yeah.
Like you have to be meaningful with that. So that sales process is a guided journey on building that foundation of trust, qualifying them. and truly qualifying, like, are they fit for your business and your solutions, or are they not? And being okay with the outcome either way, and then moving through, right, the actual facilitation of like, what does a solution look like? How can I impact you? And then like whatever the close for next steps is what we refer to that as, with no expectations. We're emotionally detached from the outcome. Yes, we want to write contracts. Yes, we want to do business with people, but we're not attached to working towards that. And we get to the end of that and that's not now. Okay. How do we make it? What's next? What happens next?
Absolutely.
And not throwing them by the wayside, because you can't act like you care enough up front for them to say not today. Now, don't get hung up on maybes, right? That's an objection that you have to work through. But if you really get to the point where it's not a great fit today, that's amazing. How do I know when I can serve you better in the near future?
Absolutely. You just mentioned about objections. Can you walk us through how you train your guys to handle, how could they effectively turn a no into a yes?
Yeah. So I think the awareness to what they are, first, we separate them into conditions or objections. Right? Is an objection a true hurdle where you ran into a wall and you need to figure it out? Or is it conditional if you could tweak something, change something, move it, right? Like an objection isn't that this studio is too small. That's like a condition. And you say, hey, that's awesome. We've got one literally right on the other side of that wall that's 3 times as big. Cool. Right? It's just information repurposed in another way to clear that. So is it a condition or an objection in the sales process? And then fire is with a objection, right? Is it smoke or is it fire, right? Is it that they really want to talk to their wife, who's not on the deed of the house and right has no control over it, or or detached wife, whatever the scenario is, or right, like, is that the smoke, or is that the actual fire, or is it just that they don't want to make a decision today because they don't have enough information? So those things show up. So it's like, how do you handle objections? One is, how do you know you're dealing with an objection, not a condition? And then really working through it, which is like seeking clarity, identifying it, isolating it, exploring what the options could be in and around it, not facing it as like a hurdle that you need to solve. Most of them you can't fix, but it's like, I'm going to do everything I can to understand why this is important for you. See if we can recreate a solution and see if we can get over it. And then at the end of that, right, like you'll find out if that's a real objection or not. So it's, again, nothing fancy. It's me building enough trust and caring about you enough that we're going to talk through the important things. That's where objections lie.
That's awesome. Man, this is a bunch of like mic drop moments over here. What advice, as we're wrapping this section over here, what advice would you give to anybody starting as it relates to sales in relation to the competition?
Man, somebody getting into sales in general, like, be super bold in understanding how you can help people, and be confident in qualifying or disqualifying those people. So spend your time and energy again in that group of people that you can help. So one is, don't be a solution for everyone, for everything. Like, we refer to it as your hedgehog, right? Like, they're only good at one thing, which is like their defense mechanisms. Like, stay in your hedgehog. Like, if you're really great at helping distressed sellers, go help distressed sellers. If you're amazing at walking people through a foreclosure, go do that. Don't get distracted by all of the other things. So like, think systematized, operationalized. It's like, how do I continue to do what I'm great at? How do I do more of it? How do I refine it so it becomes easier and more profitable and more people are happy with the outcome? Like, run that filter of thought through your head when you're decision making of sales.
Yeah, what you just said here just brought me back to one of the presentation at CG from Jeff Hoffman, the billionaire.
Yes.
Be the gold medal talent.
Correct.
Into those things that you're doing.
Yeah, like, you remember, we sat probably in that room together, and he's like, Michael Phelps, like, right, how many hours a week is he at batting practice? And you're like, I'm not sure. It's like 0, man. The guy's a multi-renowned gold medal swimmer. Like, he's swimming. So like, start swimming at where your, Olympian gold medal talent is.
Absolutely. One final questions on that section. How can business maintain high sales performance while they scale?
It's a synergistic balance of supporting what salespeople are great at, while encouraging them to grow, like, for lack of better words, right? It's giving them enough data and information that they see how they can expand their horizons slightly, to do more business, without saying, hey, we are going to, right, sit at a desk and crunch numbers and we're going to do all of these data things. Like, so not changing their DNA, but supporting them with the infrastructure to do more, to get better. You're going to hit a lot of resistance at first with that when you're like, hey man, we're going to implement this CRM and we're going to have office hours. And they're like, dude, I'm a sales guy. However, right, like in doses, with a clear understanding of why that's important, the expected outcome, that will equip those people to jump on a rocket ship to go to the moon when it comes to sales. So you'll take a reckless sales guy who could be a high performer, but he's going to hit capacity, right? Like that, A, he's going to burn out, B, going to jump to the next thing, or C, you're going to get sick of the mess that he leaves behind. Like provide enough guardrails that you keep him on the road, and moving forward in a growth focused direction. And that often takes recalibration, as a person for them. So it's like really lean into salespeople and allocate the time. We see it a lot, right? People hire a sales guy and they're like, I trained him, like, and then he'd failed. And it was like, well, what did that look like? And they're like, well, I cleared my schedule from 9 to 12 on his first day and did 2 ride-alongs with him. And it's like, did you give him 4 hours to support his career and your livelihood? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've got a robust 90-day plan where we not handhold, but we give extreme support to these people to help them build a foundation of success. And again, why we did the ramp thing on the academy side of things was to plug people into that ecosystem. So if you're not good at that and you don't have it, just find somewhere that is, right? And that environment is collaborative, it's communicative, it's support, there's training modules, there's references, all of this stuff that creates those guardrails for salespeople. And all of that is giving them the tools and resources that often is an exchange of a lack of time from business owners and entrepreneurs.
That's awesome. I mean, that's fantastic that you have a 90-day plan for those people. Like a lot of people, they just like think, okay, just 1 week of training and they're good and put them out there and try to, make money.
Yeah.
But having like that specific sales process and putting them through that, do they even go into an appointment before those 90 days are over?
They do, but not like they don't run an appointment. Like they're shadowing, there's ride-alongs, that aspect of things, but they're a fly on the wall absorbing what that is, because we have very low attrition in our sales department just due to the high standards. And frankly, they make a lot of money because they're able to. So retention is high, but it comes from that semi-patient foundation. And Frank, it's almost really 120 days when it comes to that. And we find that that's often the amount of time it takes to get even a high performing salesperson plugged into an organization and back to success. So yeah, it's upwards of, 120 days, 3-4 months until they're operating at a high level.
And here's the beautiful thing is, if anybody watching this right there, they want to be plugged into that ecosystem and like learning from your mistakes and all the things that you've learned and all the processes that they created, they can do what?
Yeah.
Sign up for RIP Skills
Come join
Academy.
the Academy today, man.
Yeah.
Now we'd love to have the people, and it is that accountability. It's not flashy. It is consistent, and it's disciplined for the people. So, which is kryptonite to most entrepreneurs, but that doesn't mean that your people don't need it. So
Awesome. Let's change hats a little bit here, and let's talk a little bit about what happened before sales.
yeah.
Marketing a little bit. So what marketing strategies have you seen that has been the most successful for you in growing with Integrity First Home Buyers?
Yeah. So when we talk marketing, it's always get to a 3-legged stool as quick as you can, right? Like, so that insulates you from some conditions, whether they're seasonal conditions, competition, tech things, right? Things happen. So if you're an operator of one channel and it goes away, you're out of business, right? Not a great place to be. And right, the saying inside our organization is 2 is 1, 1 is none. So now 2 just doesn't count because 1 breaks and 1 struggles, you're back to 0. So we encourage everybody to get to a 3-legged stool of marketing always. And I think that's agnostic again of the industry. It was on a call, my brother's in the construction space yesterday. And I was like, dude, you gotta start to have inbound, outbound, referral based stuff. And referrals almost don't count, but for those just starting, I'll give it away that it can be one of the stools for now. But when it comes to free, making yourself known, telling your, clients and friends and peers what you do, that shouldn't necessarily be considered marketing. That's just you being proud of what you do. But find some semblance of referral-based marketing, inbound style marketing, and outbound style marketing. That's like step 1. And I think you probably do a little bit of that. You said referrals yourself. I know that you create a lot of social media, which is kind of that, putting media out there, but in regards to get DMs and inbound style leads of people inquiring.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know that you cold calling and text
No,
blasting for
we do not do that.
studio time is ideal.
Yeah.
But right in the real estate space, that stuff still works. And, you know, our organizations and others make a lot of money doing it. So it's like, don't count out the activities. I would always start with like, just pick the stuff that aligns with your strategy, which is what do you want your business to look like? So maybe cold calling isn't right for your business. And just because it works, doesn't mean it's right. You could sell an organ on the black market and make money, right? Like, doesn't mean it's the best thing to do. So it's like, pick what you like. You got to do this every day and you have to be passionate about it. So design your business the way you like it. And that will be step one is top of the funnel marketing. So pick marketing channels you enjoy that or you have good relationships with that can support that.
That's awesome. I've learned something really cool about you as of recent, maybe a couple months ago, is the genius behind branding that you are. I did not know that before, but like when I saw you putting all the stuff for, Ramp Skills Academy, like, the colors and all the different, like one of my favorite thing on there is the deodorant that you put, like, your
Don't stink at sales.
Don't stink at sales and doing all of that.
Yeah.
So that is fantastic. So my next question for you, how important do you think branding is when it comes to standing out in the market?
Yeah, I think I'm going to indirectly answer that because I think it's one, you need to do what you want to do, right? Again, your business. And two, you need to communicate in a way that your avatar receives that information. I could think that that is awesome that I made a deodorant stick that says don't stink at sales. And if anybody in the sales world would view that, not understand it or hated it, like that's a disservice. Either I should be expected to be let down or expect nothing to happen. So what I mean by that is I think branding is very important. I think ego gets in the way a lot of it. And right, that's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, but like we know a lot of people, there's a difference between using billboards to your advantage for an omni-channel presence and spending 15 grand a month because you want your face plastered all over 15 billboards, right?
Yep.
And little tough love out there. There is a right place for all of those means. There is not much room for ego when it comes to marketing and branding. So it's like, how do you position and portray your brand in the right way that those people see it and that evokes, again, that emotion or that call to action that you want. So it's finding that balance of those things. And sometimes market feedback is the best way to get that. So, right, like that ramp style is a little edgy. It's fun. It's more like B2B. So we can get away with different things than with business to consumer on the direct to seller side. We have to be very clear, right? Like we know corporate brands aren't loved. So like a seller, a person behind a brand is received much better. And that's due to the demographic and avatar of the person, the locality that is interpreted of somebody as opposed to like a corporate entity. So I think it's more of a holistic approach of knowing like that whole ecosystem, how you're going to position it and how people are going to interpret it.
Yeah, for sure. So for a lot of people that are starting now, I can see that from a lot of different investors out there, like they just like, start in and putting like, things out there without like specific branding. What do you think about that? Do you think they should invest in branding early on, or is that something that they grow into, or how important that is as, they get started?
Yeah, great question. And again, that's tough, man, right? So a good friend of mine from another community, Tom Kroll, one of like my favorite coaches who we worked with in the world, he keeps everything so simple. And he often references like don't build an enterprise level system when you are in a startup phase. That doesn't mean don't aspire to be there, but over investing in certain aspects of things won't help you. Right. So like when you're in the now, be the best version of you for the now with the intent to progress and move forward. But don't get distracted by like flashy things. So it's like, we don't need to do 27 different marketing channels now. What do we need to do today to live to tomorrow, gain some case studies, some Google reviews, some testimonials, some feedback, and then expand on that from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great advice. Fire advice. How do you measure the success of your marketing campaigns and what metrics do you focus on?
Now you're getting into my sweet spot, right? This is where like all this other stuff, like maybe I can talk about a little bit. This is like, all right, put me in behind a computer screen, let me dig. So When it comes to marketing, generally there's a couple of things I like to look at. One is very clear budget and expectation. So planning, right? I'm going to spend 10,000 and I expect to make back how much. That's like our projection and justifiable model. So don't spend money until you know what you expect to happen. You'd be surprised at how many people don't do that. We'll commit to say, hey, we're going to spend 10 grand. But if hope is your strategy, it's flawed, my friend. Like, and don't live on that one too long. That is a very hard to measure strategy when you say, I hope something happens. So one is clearly articulate what you expect to happen. Two is measure along the way. So patience is balanced with not being ignorant. So if I'm spending money, what are the lead measures that tell me I'm doing a good job? Gross leads, right? And then qualified leads is an indication of quality of the return on that budget. And then I'm going to track that on a sophisticated level all the way through. Like, how much did it cost me to set an appointment? How much did it cost me to attend an appointment? How much did it cost me to get a contract? And then what's the return on that ad spend, which is revenue realized? So we have like the bookends of the core things we look at. But sometimes you don't have the visibility all along the way of that. So it's like measure what you can. Don't wait for revenue to show up at the end and say, I want to calculate my return on ad spend. So it's like measure, right? Clear expectations on what you think is going to happen, and then measure along the way. And then another sneaky thing that a lot of people don't look at, where ratios and industry standards come into play, as we all work to a 3 to 5 to 1 return on ad spend, and that's a level of success, is just like, what financial impact did it have? Right? If you spent $1 million and made $1 million, it's 2 to 1. So by all measures, that doesn't look great.
Yeah.
But are you blackjacking millions if you're making millions? Like, for sure, right?
Yeah.
So don't be over influenced by vanity metrics. And sometimes simplicity and just the basics can be really, really profitable. One thing I love to look at is profit per lead. So take your data, and for every lead that comes in your organization, how much profit is that generating? Ours is like $1,400. So when somebody's like, Benmont, like, we got more cold calling leads, we got another PPL lead, and they have this negativity bias towards it, it's like, guys, let me show you, help educate you on why it's so important. And even the impact that this lead you don't love, the financial impact that it has to payday and the success of this organization. So that's a sneaky one that I really, really like. And that'll help tell you if you should scale a budget or if you're at a point of diminishing returns or not, is just how much profit or revenue is being attributed from every lead that comes in.
That's awesome. Man, this we definitely need to do a part 2. We are a little bit over time right now, but I have like 5 different top sections that I could talk more. I'm gonna list them, and then we'll pick the one that you want to talk about. So we have real estate investment, scaling and business growth, leadership and hiring. I kind of like that one.
Okay.
Overcoming challenges and failures. You talked a little bit about that earlier. Yep. And that can be part of part 2 also. And then industry insights.
Yeah. If you like hiring, do hiring.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
So when you are looking to hire new team members, what key traits and qualities do you look for, especially in sales and operations role?
Yeah, another great question and a super important piece, right? Human capital. Your team, I love. Like, these guys, like, I would be best friends with everybody on your team. That's why I like show up randomly at the office and we'll work for an hour from here from time to time. And that's a reflection of quality of person, right? So for us, we have a hire box, which is like the top of the funnel filter. They have to be in alignment with our company's core values. They have to have the right personality attributes for the role so that we don't put somebody in the wrong seat. Cognitive ability is important for us so that we have somebody that can process information at the pace our organization moves, at that speed. And then there are like the intangibles that are really hard to measure. We recently referenced like body, being, and balance. And they're the things that often show up why you would remove somebody from an organization that you overlook, that don't show up on a resume, that like we've tried to work really hard at bringing back to the front of that. And that's like, what do they do when they're not excelling at their resume qualities, right? True or false? Do you think somebody that works out every day has a level of discipline better than somebody else that could show up both in their personal life and their professional life?
I would say true.
Right. So like, that's the easy one. But then it's like, what's important about the cleanliness of somebody's car, their desk? What are they learning on their own? What hobbies do they have? Somebody with no hobbies, do you think they learn a lot? Like, probably not, right? So then it's like, how is that going to translate to their eagerness to learn inside the organization. Somebody with poor financial management externally that struggles with that and is a mess, like how would they manage a marketing budget or the care for you when even shopping equipment if you could save money at one vendor to the next, right? So there's all of these things that happen every day that actually exude amazing qualities of how well of a fit they would be inside your organization. Now, I'm not telling you like from a compliance perspective to like hire or not hire, but attract people that fit into that culture of your ecosystem well. We've done such a good job of that. No credit to mine whatsoever, but like we found that giving a gym pass to our organization has created this amazing cultural impact where everyone works out at 6:30 in the morning every day together, 4 or 5 days a week together. And like we find people in there on the weekends now.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's one thing I see that a bunch of like Eric be posting that, and I talk to my staff and say, hey, maybe we should look into
Let's go
a
to the
gym
gym.
together. But like we live like a little bit far from each other, and like that's something that like I took from you guys and wanted to implement. And again, as I shared earlier too, like I think I'm getting a little bit of weight too, so that would have been good to kind of be able
Yeah, it's
to
fall, winter season.
for winter season. Yeah. um, but yeah, that is fantastic that you guys provide that, for your
And it can be
employees.
anything. So don't get hung up on the gym, right? But like, what do you think happens when you start your day early, right? Like you physically has been proven to increase, dopamine and productivity and all of that. And then the conversations that are had before, during, and after that, right? The people's attentiveness that show up that have been awake for 2 hours as opposed to somebody that rolled out of bed and scrambled to the office. Could be a book club. What did you learn? What did you reflect on? What did you share? What lesson could somebody take that I shared from this talk show today that goes back and helps their family and their home life better tomorrow, right? Like that's the ultimate goal. So sometimes it's just like structuring the activities, the time to do that. So when it comes to hiring, like do as much of that as you can to attract those people in your ecosystem that don't treat it as a negative, right? Embrace that and just make it known that that's important to your organization ahead of time. And then all of your candidates will start to become a representation of that, which is crucial.
That's fantastic. So that kind of feeds through a little bit about the company culture. So can we talk a little bit about how you build and maintain a strong company culture while you're growing so fast?
Oh yeah. Culture, as you said, you used two words that I love there is built. Like culture is not bought. So culture is not pizza parties, short-term vacation giveaways to incentivize beating someone to death, right? The other 362 days a year. So culture is almost a respect. And for our organization, it is a result of our core values. And picking that kind of stuff when you build an organization is so pivotal because our core values, like one of them's care hard and another's play to win. And what that means is 98% isn't winning. And I care about you and our alignment so much that I have the ability to jack you up because we only hit 98% when probably 9 out of 10 other organizations would say that that's amazing. We hit 98% of goal.
Yeah.
So culture becomes something that's a level of respect. And it's frankly a result of the success of everybody's commitments. Like it's like 5 dysfunctions of a team. Like culture is the outcome of either the lack of the 5 dysfunctions or a direct correlation to the 5 dysfunctions. And the other thing with culture is the ceiling of leadership is the level of culture that you'll build. So, right, if you can turn around and talk about your boss behind his back, or you when you leave the room, you're like, man, Jet's just like killing us in here. It's like the culture is going to be the vibe of killing us in here in a non-abundant scarcity mindset mentality. So it's like all of that stuff intertwines a lot. Culture isn't something that you can just say you have. Like culture is tough love and is everybody adhering to that clear Mount Everest plan, despite the hard days, the easy days. And over time, you'll get enough reps in that everybody like enjoys that environment that is built. And then that's like tagged culture at the end of that.
That's awesome. I love that Mount Everest. How do you call that? A Mount Everest analogy.
Yeah.
One
Stole
of
that from our business coach, Corwin Smith. So shout out to him. He did a great job of explaining the importance of that to us.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind that like I've learned a long time ago that I think was a fantastic part of the Mount Everest analogy was if you stack a bunch of domino like one after another, um, at the 50th level, when you knock the first one, obviously the first one is going to be the hardest to knock down. But if you keep whacking at it, like, doing the daily grinds, when that falls, it's going to create the domino effect, the domino reaction. And by the 58th domino is going to be, you will be able to knock something as big as Mount Everest.
Yep. And it's
I was
just,
like,
it's the day in, day outs, right? Like,
Yeah.
as you describe that, I'm like, oh yeah, man, that's the everyday work. It sometimes seems monotonous and time consuming and boring, or like, why do we do this? Right? Like, you almost take that all the way down. You were just a CG, right? And to close that thought is like, they did the 1-page plan that came all the way down into a daily implementation schedule.
Yeah.
So like, imagine if you could see how to get to Mount Everest, whatever your Everest is, by just executing this specific plan day in and day out. And that comes back to the minute 4 of this talk show where we said the clarity of that North Star, that Mount Everest, and why it's so important, all the way down to that granular level.
Awesome. 3 more questions and we'll wrap up. What are the most important leadership lessons that you've learned during your career?
I've worked closely with Mr. Eric Brewer. Shout out to my man. I'm going to butcher this analogy, but he has always talked about feedback, where it's like, you have to be humble enough to receive feedback, willing enough to receive it, humble enough to accept it, smart enough to do something about it. Somewhere in there. What that translates to is always, right, let people really give it to you good, and then sift through the emotions of it. And they're telling you something for a reason. And a leader will always find the positive in those messages, take extreme ownership of that, and provide a better solution at the end of that, of where you came from. And I think you could like apply that to everything. So, right, every little jab that somebody throws, every problem, don't overlook it. Like, take the time, right? Some of the little things are the biggest impacts. So we've adopted that pretty well when it comes to leadership. Is always like, never overlook the people. Leadership is everyone and everything, right? Like, a lead manager inside of a business, when it comes to leadership, there's no hierarchy. There's no seniority. Everyone is required to be a leader of their position, of their role. And it is everyone's level at that point in time. So like, that's how we treat that. And if you have an idea, I don't care who you are, where it came from, like, we should explore it, consider it, and go with it. So like, leadership is, there's no hierarchy. There's no org chart to leadership.
I love it.
It's everywhere.
That's awesome. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur who are hiring their first team members? By the way, I want to, before you answer that question, a quick shout out to you. I remember I was one time struggling with a person that I was interviewing, and I texted you and asked you what you thought about it. And you took the time and actually called me, and we spoke for like 25 minutes about that specifically. So I appreciate that. And that talks, to, the awesome person that you are. So thank you. The advice. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur that is hiring, their first team members?
I would say it's a skill set that is compatible with yours, and compatible means you could work with them, but absolutely not in similarity to yours. So, right, like, don't hire a friend who's also good at sales if you're great at sales. Now you've just got 2 different personalities doing sales. So as you're seeking that first hire, and in CG, right, we see that often in Elevate the Community, where it's like they're starting to just go through their second hire. Inside Ramp, we're dealing with a lot of new hires. So we spend a lot of time working with, the newer people, the just hire or the hiring. And it's like, find out what you're not great at. Somebody's amazing at that, and plug them in, because what that does is exponential time creation for you. So, right, you already have fixed time in a day. And if you're filling your day with doing things you don't like, you're not going to be as productive at doing things that you love. So, right, don't have 2 ops guys. Don't have 2 sales guys. If you're good at finance, retain finance until it's not the right time when you're growing. Go find somebody else that is amazing at what you stink at. And it's just that simple methodology. Is you will build a business that inherently isn't like everybody's like idea of like, my boys, right, and my best friends in here. Just find some best friends that are complementary to your weaknesses. And like the long term, you'll be grateful that that's the path you chose, as opposed to like a boiler room full of sales dudes razzing each other up that have no idea how to generate leads or reconcile the books.
Yeah.
That'll get you a lot further. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's another question that come to mind when you were describing that. For somebody that is just starting, Obviously, they are at a point where they need to hire additional team members to grow or doing that, but they are still kind of like, struggling with the amount of money that they're making to be able to support that. What advice would you give to them?
One is you have to hire the best possible person you can. And what that means is if you make that from a budgetary constraints perspective, it's really hard to get out of that. So if you sacrifice of hiring the absolute best possible candidate and best possible person at the time you frankly need it the most, is you are going to stunt your growth. So that doesn't mean be reckless and go pilferage, right? A CEO from Pepsi or Starbucks, guy just got 120 million and commutes via jet to work every day, right? That's year two, right? Push that off. But it is hiring. And that's why that like runway and roadmap of hiring and training is so important. Because one, you don't have room for failure. And the best possible person has a higher likelihood to succeed. If you train the heck out of them and support them, higher likelihood to succeed. And what that means is you'll have a greater return on your investment. I'll tell you what's a huge loss is hiring somebody from a budget perspective that's not great. And now time has passed, you've wasted money and you're back to square one. Now you're tired, you're annoyed, and you have a little bit less money than you did before, right? And you're further behind. So invest in the appropriate person, again, for this phase of your business now, but make sure it's the best possible person. Find a way to make it work, right? There's a lot of ways to incentivize people, tie them into, profit bonuses, whatever that is, incentivize behaviors that are aligned to the results you want. Tie comp into that way if you need to, but don't make sacrifices when it comes to people.
Awesome. I love that. That was another fire moment.
That's so fire.
So as you release through Ramp Skills Academy, are there anything that you would like to share that would be for anybody that is watching this video?
Oh man, come hang out, come check it out. Frankly, like I said, I can't describe when we showed up here 5 months ago to film a bunch of content for that project. The only thing that led us to that path is enough people said that we should do it, that we believed in ourselves, that it was the right thing to do. So it was passion driven. We've got 19 years of experience in building a sales culture in doing that. Have closed over 4,000 transactions, right? Humble brag to the back home squad. And I say that because the process comes with a lot of data and we have validated that. So it's like, if you're struggling, I want to plug you into a very affordable ecosystem that fast tracks you way to success when it comes to sales, changing that perspective of what sales is or could be, providing what we've found and over 200 other active members have found to be a very successful model. And again, when it comes to hiring, maybe that's a limitation of yours. Maybe you don't have the budget to hire a sales manager or a sales trainer or something. Like pennies on the dollar return to get your organization inside of a ecosystem with guys like Joe and Eric leading that organization. So
that's awesome.
And it's fun, man. We have fun. We have giveaways, contests, win a shirt, win some cash. It's focused on the people, not always just the entrepreneur. You guys are already spoiled. Have a lot of flexibility, generally make a lot of money. This is a community for the doers inside there. So when we built that, it was for that group of people to have collaboration and community.
Awesome. So what would you say if you had to give me like 1 minute elevator speech pitch about Ramp Skills Academy? What would that be?
The pitch. All right. Ramp Skills and Conversion Academy is a place to debunk all of your beliefs of struggles inside your organization now. Do you question if marketing isn't converting well enough? Do you think that your agents should leave with more appointments than they currently do? Do you have high contract fall off? Does each agent's sales process look different? Do you wish that you could convert at a standard we see of 72% lead to appointment? Are your agents converting at 22 to 24% appointment to contract goal? Can you stabilize, scale? How do you onboard and train people? If any of those are questions that keep you up at night, our academy is the place for you to spend some time.
Awesome. So how would somebody be able to get a hold of you or even go to connect with you for Ramp Skills Academy or any of the other things that you're doing? How can they get contacted with you?
Yeah, I think it's as simple. We just launched social and that kind of stuff that we're working on. You're going to help us with that. But in the meantime, check out Ramp REI for realestateinvesting.com, ramprei.com. It takes you through a tour of what that community looks like. It's all self-contained. There's not like a Facebook page here, modules here, all of this stuff spread out. So it's one-stop shop, one place for any sales position to be. It's easy. It's fun. It's weekly. We have 5 calls a month. It's a great community, and don't show up unless you're ready to put the work in. There's no hiding. This is mics off, mics on, cameras on, and you're engaged every week.
I love it. Awesome. Man, that was a fantastic, and definitely I want to have a part 2. So whenever you're available and, want to jump and come and hang out in the studio, let's do it.
Amazing.
But that was fantastic. I've learned a ton, and man, that was mic drop. That was so fire.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure. If people found value in that, I'm always here to share some stories along the way. Hopefully they stuck through to the end and found a little nugget to move them further ahead than where they were. And that would be fire for me. And I appreciate you, sir.
Let's go, baby. It's fire. Good job, man. That was awesome.